Hello, welcome to Enlightened Empaths with Samantha and Denise. This week, our topic is counteracting negative manifesting, and we're going to be sharing tips and stories and ideas for counteracting thoughts that you may be having consciously or subconsciously that are actually manifesting the opposite of what you're trying to create. So we're calling this show Be Careful What You Ask For, because sometimes we can unwittingly attract to us the things we're actually worried or fearful about. So Denise, do you want to start with a kind of a description of what negative manifesting is in your opinion?
Yes, and I think it's important to note for a lot of us, the last month or so, there's been a lot of fear-based, there's been a lot of anxiety, there's been a lot of what if. It's been quite tumultuous. And around the new moon last week and the spring equinox, things seem to be lifting and moving in a new direction. So, but it's been very dense and heavy. And I think part of that has been a lot of negativity rising up, a lot of self-doubt, and that's a huge part of this is our internal dialogue and that fear-based stuff. The more I thought about it, the more I researched, I think a lot of that comes from being empaths and being very sensitive and absorbing all of that negativity and tension, but also so many of us have had life circumstances that may have been less than ideal. So it's almost like you're waiting for that shoe to drop all the time of, oh, well, this happened in the past. It almost feels like a cellular memory thing at times. So one question
Right.
I think is really important is, are you sabotaging yourself when you say, I really want this? I did a reading a couple days ago, and the one was saying, I really want this. And then everything she said, she immediately counteracted with the opposite. And during the reading, I said, you're expressing that this is what you want to manifest, this is what you want to do. But then it immediately went into all the reasons why it couldn't happen. And I think that that's a really good example of we're setting this out, we're asking for help, we want to manifest and co-create for our highest and best, but then the other piece slides in under the door and counteracts what we're trying to bring in.
Right. And the way this topic came up for us, sometimes Denise and I talk on the phone for a long time, and when we're about to hang up, we go, wow, that could have been a show. And I had called you, I was telling you about a friend of mine whose husband started a business, a restaurant on his own. And she was upset because he didn't really discuss it with her. He just quit his excellent paying job with all of wonderful benefits and safety and security to go after this dream of his. And throughout this process, she continually says, it's almost as though her mantra is, I know this will fail. I know this will fail. And his mantra has been, I know this will succeed. This is my dream. And it's interesting to watch the success of this business, because one month it's doing great and the next month it's doing terribly. It's very black and white. And I feel like the two of them are manifesting their intentions because they both want to be validated. She wants to be validated. I was right. I knew this was not a good idea. And he wants to be validated. I know this is my dream. I know it's my destiny. It will be successful. And I was telling Denise, sometimes I feel that people manifest negative outcomes simply to prove that they are right.
Yes.
And I don't even think people are aware that they are doing it. And, if you look at my lovely friend, she is not trying to sabotage her husband's business by any means. I think if she were to look at the root of her mantra, I know this will fail, I know this will fail, it's really hurt that he didn't come to her and discuss it with her and seek her opinion and get her approval, because it's a partnership and a marriage, but at least give her the respect of saying, hey, I'd like to do this. Are you okay with this? Can you please support me? And so I don't think she's negatively manifesting a failed business out of any spite. I think it's more out of hurt. And so I just would invite people to think about, have you done similar things in your own life just to prove that you are right? I had a client for years. She was so upset that her son married a woman that already had a child. Some people from other generations, they don't like that. And every time I would talk to her, she would say, I know this marriage is going to fail. I know it, and he won't listen to me. And I would say to her, well, is she not a nice daughter-in-law? Like, what is it that you're resisting here? Well, I don't think he should take on her child and her responsibilities. I think he's taking on too much. And through the years of doing readings for her, that marriage has started to have some problems. And I wonder, I'm not blaming this woman at all.
No.
She loves her son. I just wonder if sometimes we can create that. We are so much more powerful than we give ourselves credit for. And if thoughts are things, there's a Chinese proverb that says, thought is the ancestor of action.
Oh, I like that.
And I love that too, because I love the word ancestor, because what it tells us is what the law of attraction and books and documentaries like The Secret have been teaching for years. Thoughts do become things, but it takes a while. It's the ancestor of the action. It takes a long time. So if you have a negative thought over and over and over, eventually some aspect of that will manifest.
Exactly. And that's a huge part. And one of the things that I read about was saying, if you're trying to, I'm going to rattle my paper for a minute, sorry. There was one article that I read in getting ready for the show, and the woman said, walk yourself through a worst case scenario and go through all the steps of what would be the worst thing that could happen. I'm not a big fan of that, because I think you're just exemplifying and bringing it more in and saying, oh, this might happen. And another thing that I thought about, and I'm thinking about right now, is that for those of us who are so intuitive and sensitive, sometimes it's a really fine line between, is this fear-based or is it a premonition? So if you have children or a spouse or someone who's in, there's a woman that I work with and her husband's in law enforcement, and she kept going through all these doom and gloom scenarios that she's very intuitive, but she was also very afraid something was going to happen to him. And I kept thinking, we talked about this, and I said, you can't keep putting that out there, because on some level you're manifesting that negative coming in. What do you think about that, walking through the worst case?
I have mixed feelings on that, because if you suffer from anxiety or worry, sometimes that can be helpful. Mm-hmm. But I agree with you that on another level, it's a careful, tricky balance. When I was a little girl, I used to worry about everything. I would worry about school and grades and friends and teachers, but I would also worry about the world. I was worried about Russia and Gorbachev. I mean, I was a weird little kid. And I would go to my dad when I couldn't sleep at night, and I would say, Daddy, I'm so worried about, this or that. And he would always say, okay, well, let's walk through that. What's the worst thing that could happen in this situation? And I would say, well, I'll fail the test. And he'd say, okay, so you failed the test, then what happens? Well, then I won't get a good grade. Okay, so you don't get a good grade, then what happens? Well, I don't know, it just wouldn't feel good. Okay. He said, if you do your best, I'm not going to be mad at you. The teacher will understand, and we can get you a tutor. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes it would help me to walk through what's the worst thing that can happen. I think the problem is if you are unconsciously meditating on the worst thing that could happen.
Yes.
I think to do it as a talking therapeutic exercise with a friend or a partner or a therapist or a parent or what have you, I think that can be a therapeutic exercise just to kind of get you out of that hamster wheel of worry. But if you are consistently thinking about what's the worst that can happen, there's a meme going around the internet that says something like, I said, what's the worst thing that can happen? And the universe said, challenge accepted.
Oh, my goodness. But the way you just described that makes perfect sense, because you're also preparing so that if that situation does appear, you have a default plan. You have something to fall back on. It's similar to any kind of training. Since I'm still working in public schools, we have to go through a lot of trainings for if this scenario happens, if that scenario happens, with the premise that you'll be ready when it does. So maybe that's a different way to flip that coin and look at it.
But it's something I think about and worry about all the time. It's nothing I've mastered successfully in my own life. For example, with all these recent school shootings, I have a daughter in high school now, and I worry about that. And that article went around the internet after the Florida shooting about the suggestion of putting a door jamb in your child's backpack, so that if there is a school shooting, they could put the door jamb underneath their classroom door, and at least it would give them a couple of moments. And I was in Home Depot the other weekend, walking down I always walk through the aisles of Home Depot going, please, can somebody create a tour for newly single moms? I never know how to find anything in that place. So I was walking down some random aisle, and they had a whole shelf of door jambs. And I thought, oh, Samantha, do you buy this and put it in her backpack and put that worry in her? Every time she sees that door jamb, she's going to think, why is that in my back? Oh, yeah, in case there's a shooter. And if that is in her mind enough, I don't know. So I didn't buy it.
Yeah, and that's that.
So I
that
still
fine
grapple
line.
with that.
That's
Right. I've told the story so many times. I apologize, people. I don't have many good stories, but my friend that I always went to the beach with, and she would carry the special medicine for if your child was bitten by a jellyfish. And she carried it every day very proudly. And her children were bitten by jellyfish a couple of times. And my kids were always right next to her in the ocean playing, and mine never did get bitten by a jellyfish. And I always wondered, was she subconsciously attracting that? And that's even voicing it out loud, it's a terrible thing to say. What mother would attract that? I just mean energetically, I wonder if our actions and our thoughts that are consistent and repetitive somehow do manifest in our reality.
And another piece to that is, I'm going to switch it a little bit to, I remember when my boys first got their licenses, could drive by themselves, and, they were late or they weren't, one time my older son, he came onto the planet wanting to go fast. He loves to drive anything and move way, way too quickly through life. And he called me, and it was really late at night, and it was storming. It was like a terrible rainstorm. And he had spotty cell reception, because here in rural Maine, there are places where you just drop. It's gone. You're not getting a connection. And he called me and he said, I'm on the back roads out in Weld, and I don't know where I am. And then his phone went dead. And this was in the middle of it was like maybe midnight. And I laid there and I thought, oh my, how you start to hyperventilate. Is this okay? Don't send out this fear-based. Is it, he's going to, and then of course you start figuring, there's going to be a tree in the road. There's going to be this, a deer's going to run in front of him. And he made it home. He was safe. But in the interim, I went from 0 to 60 really fast. And sometimes I'll do that even if there's not a cause for it. I'll start to get those wheels turning in fear-based, or what if this happens, or it's the what ifs, the mights, the coulds, that negative loop tape that will start in our heads. And I think it's really important as highly sensitive people and empaths that we come up with some tools. Like a lot of times now, I'll immediately start saying prayers, or I'll picture them protected with light, or I'll ask, like my parents who are in spirit to watch out for the boys, or whatever it might be. And I think you have to have something you can use that will refocus your energy so that you don't spin out of control with it.
Yes, I agree. This is why I think having faith in something, it doesn't have to be God, it doesn't have to be Buddha or Christ or Muhammad. Just faith in something greater than you is so important, because when you do get in that fear-based mode, in my opinion, the best tool you can rely on is your own faith. And just surrender that I have faith that what I am asking for will happen. I'm asking for protection. I will be granted that protection. I'm asking for safety. I will be granted that safety.
Because you have to focus. You have to switch that focus to something good. You have to find something positive in that and rewire the tape. And, back to the example with my son, I thought, well, at least I know if anything happens to the car, he knows what to do to get it going again. He knows how to fix it. He's very resourceful. So to catch yourself and really is this a realistic thought, or am I just scaring the shit out of myself?
Mm-hmm. Yep. And if you are getting into that fear-based mode, one of the things that I do is I jump to the desired outcome.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, if when you were sitting in bed worried about your son, what I would do is I would focus on visualizing him coming through the door and me hugging him.
Yes, I agree entirely.
And then that helps me to refocus my thoughts on a positive spin. Because, one of the things that people need to watch out for are the things that they don't consciously think about. This is why I think meditation and awareness and spiritual studies, yoga, all of those practices we're always talking about is so important, because it brings the subconscious and the conscious into alignment. The subconscious is so much more powerful than the conscious mind. People like you and I, who are very open with our fears and worries and hopes and dreams, I think have an easier time of manifesting. But some people who are very closed and private, oftentimes they will push their fears down, down, down into their subconscious. And that subconscious mind is fertile soil.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you are pushing your fears down and down and down into that fertile soil and ignoring them and not giving them the love and attention they need, they grow and they take root. This is why I think it's so important to really be in touch with your thoughts, with your greatest fears. Most of the clients I talk to, they don't want to go there. They don't want to talk about their greatest fear. They don't want to verbalize it at all. And I think in verbalizing it and shining a light on it, you're taking the power away from that fear.
That's an excellent point.
Also, and sometimes you're recognizing the absurdity of your fears.
Mm-hmm.
Some of our fears are pretty absurd. I have one of my daughters is really smart. She's just naturally smart. And my other daughters, they always make fun of her because she'll come into the car after school and she'll go, "Mom, I totally failed that math test. I don't even want to see it. I can look at it online tonight and I'm not going to because I know I failed." And then she always gets like a 95. Why my other two kids, they have tutors and they're up till midnight studying. It's just her thing. And so her fears are kind of absurd. And I asked her about it one night. I said, have faith in yourself. You're a really smart kid and you always do what's expected of you. You study, you put the work in, and you're going to get the grades. Don't even give that any attention. And she said, Mom, the one time I walked out of a classroom saying, I know I aced that test, I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, so in a way, it's kind of a good luck thing for me to say, I know I failed that, because every time I say that, I do ace it.
Right. And that ritual,
okay,
yes.
That's working for her, but at the same time, there's a negative connotation to that. So I wonder if people could think about, do they have any weird opposite type of good luck things that they do? I don't think ultimately those will serve you. You've got to have faith and confidence in yourself. This is what I tell my girls when they worry about things like that. I say, did you do your best? And they'll say, yeah, I studied as much as I could. Then let it go. If you didn't do your best, then let's go back into the worry and work it out and see what you can do to fix it. But if you did your best, try to let it go. And I try to remind myself of that too. When I lay in bed at night, and I call them the worry men, the little worry men come marching through my head, I'll think, Samantha, did you do your best today? Then that's all you can do. And go to sleep and
That's a nice gift for yourself as well. That's a huge self-care piece, is to not keep beating yourself up about it, but to say, okay, I did the best I can and that's all I could do. That's a huge thing. And also just if you can't let go of it, and I think part of, what's been a very prevalent theme for a lot of people right now, and I think it aligns very much with these new energies coming in, the seasonal new energies. We're at a real time of change, and so many people want to bring in a new job, a new partner, a new lifestyle, a move. We just all seem so primed to take the next step. and very, 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 very many is an odd way to put it, but so many people are, they want this, they want to manifest it, they want to be, I'm just going to use being self-employed as an example. And they'll say, okay, I want to do this and and then immediately will give a whole laundry list of why they can't do it. I think that's the real piece that we need to focus on are those realistic concerns? If you're the primary wage earner in your home and you're taking care of your family and you want to take a leap of faith, your rules and subset is much different than someone who is either not in that phase of their life or doesn't have the same constraints. So I think making it individual to yourself is really, really important. But also,
I do too.
Not to let other people, their fear-based stuff impact what you're trying to manifest. So I think we brought this up once before, as far as if you're in a couple relationship and you really want, and similar to the story you told earlier, you want to bring something in and your partner or your spouse or your significant other person doesn't, how that does cause this clash. So getting clear on what resonates for you on a soul level is so, so very important on what you're going to manifest. And I think it helps counteract that fear quite a bit as well.
Yes, I don't think we can stress enough that every single one of us is creating at every given moment. If you think about the world that you see and interact every day as a Jackson Pollock painting, you know how Jackson Pollock just basically splashed paint on a canvas? Mm-hmm. And please, artists, don't attack me. I know he did more than that, but for the sake of my metaphor, just go with me. All of us every day are splashing paint onto that canvas. And those of us that have the brightest paint and the most paint, that's the color we're going to see on that canvas that is our world. So if you are with a partner who's manifesting something that is counteracting what you're trying to manifest, the strongest energy wins.
Right.
So don't freak out if you're listening to this going, oh crap, my partner wants A and I want B, so we're going to end up with C. No, you could end up with B if your energy is the strongest and the brightest, if you are actively co-creating and really nourishing that energy of that visualization you're trying to manifest with consistent and positive thoughts and visualizations and daydreams. Also, there are ways that you can manifest on your own without a partner. And I have to be careful how I word that because that did not come out right. For example, I had a client who came to me for life coaching, not a reading. And her main issue was money. They both made really good money and they just couldn't seem to hold on to it. Her partner was a big spender, didn't worry about money, didn't think about it very much. And she always did worry about it and did think about it. And she wanted to put money aside to invest and all of that. And no matter how much she and her partner would talk about their differences, nothing ever seemed to happen. And so I said, okay, so a savings is going to make you feel safe in the world. And him spending money makes him feel alive in the world. Those are two very different things. So rather than spending your energy fighting him and obsessing over the bank statements each month, why don't you just open up your own bank account and every month put some money into that so that you can have your own savings? That's and then logical. You don't have to worry so much about, what he's doing. Get credit cards in your name or credit cards in his name so that you can start to feel safer. And then that energy will calm down, and then you can focus the energy on what you're really here to focus on, which is growing your money. And she did that, and it had a really good impact. I mean, she started growing her money. She joined an investment group. And so I think there are ways that we can counteract a partner who is manifesting in a direction that's really different from what we are trying to do. And then sometimes, you need to come up with compromise. We have a lot of listeners who share with us that they are opening up finally to their empathy and their intuition, and their partner is going, what are you doing? You're meditating? I think that's a different situation where gentle compromise is needed. where you need to say to your partner, I don't know what's happening to me. I don't know why this is so important to me. I don't know what's going to come of this. But I just ask you not to doubt me, not to question me, not to fight me on this. Just let me do my thing. You can do your thing. I'm going to do my thing. It doesn't have to be a big thing. Just let me breathe through this spiritual change.
That was very well put as well. The other thing that, as you were talking, and I started thinking about, I don't even know why this popped into my head, but the perfectionism piece, that I think as myself, I have that disease. I think a lot of us do that are sensitive folks, because we want it to be right. We get to a place in our lives where we've so fine-tuned our emotions that we want to make sure that, I don't know, I just think there's a perfectionism thing, or having overly high standards. And part of that manifesting piece is, okay, I want this level, I want this, and you do have to shoot high, but also don't shoot yourself in the foot when you're trying to manifest something and then give up halfway there, because it may not have. I think this is coming out jumbled, but hopefully I'm getting my point across, is that be true, be authentic with what you're trying to manifest, and believe in yourself with that goal, not because it's someone else's goal, or not because you think you're supposed to attain that level. It may be that your level is, I want to be an intuitive medium at this level. I want this many clients. For someone else, they may want to be on the big stage and have a TV show. So aligning with what resonates most with you and what you're manifesting is such an important part of this, and not getting caught up in the perfectionism or the overly high standards, or because we're all a work in progress, and it has to be an individual thing with what we're trying to manifest. But I think so many of us have gotten caught up in it. We're not enough, or it's not enough. One of the things I've always told the students I work with who do have special needs or challenges, and I say this in front of a lot of kids who don't have this, so that they get the messages, we all have strengths and weaknesses. We're all a work in progress. And I think that's a gentle way for ourselves as well to say, I'm exactly what you just said a few minutes ago. I'm doing the best I can, but I also deserve this. I deserve to have this income level, or a job that I love, or a partner that's respectful. So truly switching that around, so that reframing it, I guess, is a good way to put it, and how powerful that can be in changing the direction you're trying to manifest.
Yes. And I think a lot of us get stuck in the manifesting progress because we are having a cosmic temper tantrum. Where we're just so mad at God or the universe or other people around us that what we have been working so hard to manifest is not for us. And sometimes that can be a blessing. Sometimes it's because you're just in the way, saying, no, I know this is the right way to get to this goal I'm trying to do. It's like a friend told me several months ago. He said, you got to let go and let God. And I said, please stop quoting bumper stickers. And he said, no, listen to me. He said, you're basically standing in front of this workbench and you're trying to put this puzzle together and work this problem. And you're frustrated because you can't see it. And you're yelling at God going, why aren't you helping me? And God is standing behind you going, because you're standing in front of the workbench and I can't see the puzzle pieces. If you'd get out of the way, I could step in and help. And that imagery really helped me, because when I do get worried about something and I'm trying really hard to manifest something, I do go into control mode. I can do this. I can fix this. I can make this happen. And that is the worst way to manifest something. And so often that leads us to this cosmic temper tantrum where we just get stuck in this, I'm not lucky, things aren't working out for me, this is not going to go my way. And when you get in that temper tantrum mode, the universe, remember Rumi, I really think all the answers to life can be found in reading Rumi. I really do. And one of my favorite quotes of Rumi is, your word is your echo.
And that's exactly what we're talking about.
Comes back to you. Exactly. And so if you're in this temper tantrum going, my life sucks, nothing's working out, I can't manifest anything, that's what's being echoed back to you. Yeah, your life does suck. Yep, you can't manifest anything. You couldn't manifest a hamburger if you had $2 in one hand and the McDonald's drive-through order in the other.
And I think that's
So
a
it's
really,
important.
really important question to ask yourself is, because it always comes back to, reversing the mirror, looking within and saying, where am I coming from? Am I coming from a place of, joy and happiness and raising my vibration, or am I complaining? Am I criticizing? Am I attracting drama and disaster? Am I blaming someone else because this isn't working in my life? Because that ownership piece is huge. It's so huge.
It really is. It really is. Like Dr. Phil says, you can't change what you don't acknowledge. And so if you're not acknowledging your part in this blockage with manifesting, you're not going to get out of the way to allow God or the universe to come in and help you open those doors. And sometimes I have an image when I'm trying to manifest something and it's not working. There's a Far Side cartoon that I adore, and it's a building that says School for the Gifted.
I love that
and
one.
One door says, I think, push.
Yeah.
And he's trying so hard to pull on it.
Mm-hmm.
And the door clearly says push, and he's pulling. And I think about that cartoon and I think, am I doing that? Because sometimes I'm knocking on a door that I know is my door, when really there's an open door down the hall that's much better for me. But I get so hyper-focused on going, I know this is the right thing for me. So getting out of that temper tantrum mode, getting out of that control mode, and really trusting not only in yourself, but in the universe to lead you and guide you each step of the way is really important.
That was, it's so spot on. It's absolutely spot on because, excuse me, that's the whole key to this. And we can, talk about the fear base. We can talk about going into negativity. We can talk about, I really want to manifest this. And why isn't it happening? A good example is I did a reading for a woman quite a while ago now. And oh my goodness, I was exhausted by the end of it because everything that I brought up was immediately negated. And it didn't matter if it was about relationship, and it was all coming from a victim mode. It was coming to everything happening to her, not through her. And I think that ownership piece is once you start to say, I'm responsible for my life and what I'm bringing into it, it completely changes the game. And this is also being dead ass honest that I blamed I'm going to use my financial situation. I blamed that on circumstances. I blamed it on my ex-husband. I blamed it on other people in my life. I blamed it on my family of origin. And then one day I just drew that line in the sand and I said, damn it, Denise, this is your shit. Deal with it. And I think, sorry about the language piece, but I feel very strongly that the ownership piece and the responsibility of, and that also helps counteract if you have negative people that are trying to put your fire out, and you really want to manifest this dream life or this dream situation or a higher bank account or a new home, and you have someone who's constantly giving you all the reasons why it can't happen, or you're giving yourself those reasons, which is even worse. You have to own that and switch it around and really ask yourself some poignant questions. Is this the thought, what do I need to get rid of in my life so that I can bring in what I do want to bring in? And that's huge.
Okay, but you brought up, it is huge. And what you brought up is a really big, what I hope will be an aha moment for some people, because without getting personal, your financial issues you just mentioned really were not your fault or your problem. You really were the victim, and you really had every right to blame those people. And what happens, I think, you really did.
Thank you.
And what happens, I think, for so many people when they get in those moments, that's that other temper tantrum where it's like, but this happened to me and it sucks and it's not right. And we keep getting stuck there, and nothing is going to change until we finally wipe our tears and blow our nose and say, yeah, this really sucks. This really was not my fault. I did not manifest this. I did not create this, but it's mine. It's mine now.
And this is where I am right now.
exactly. This is my season, and what can I do to change it? What could I do? I have a friend going through a really yucky divorce. Imagine that. And her her ex has refused to pay her child support, which is mind blowing because he's a stockbroker in New York and makes a crap load of money. And he's doing all sorts of weird, creepy stuff to hide. Anyway, I won't get into her details because I don't have her permission to. But she is refusing to get a job and move on with her life because she knows he owes her all this money. And when she entered that marriage, it was an agreement that she would be a stay-at-home mom, and gosh darn it, that's what she's going to be. And I keep trying to tell her, right now, he's not paying that money. Are you owed that money? Yeah. Is it coming? No. So you've got to get a job.
Right.
And she's resisting it and getting more and more angry when the bills come in. And it's frustrating as a friend to watch that. Again, not saying I haven't done similar things in my own life. I'm not preaching to anyone. We all do it. I just think it's important to be aware of when we are doing it.
Very much so. And, I had read this quote earlier by Bryant McGill, who said, your will has to be stronger than your fear. And that's a huge part of this is sometimes you just have to kick your own self in the butt and say, you know what, exactly what you just said, this sucks and it's not fair. And you cry and you kick your feet and you throw things and then you're so depleted, but you hit, you hit rock bottom and you say, okay, what do I need to do to take care of myself? And as far as the child support situation, it may never come. It just may, that may, situations happen in people's lives that I think counting on something and not stepping into your own power or taking back the reins, getting out of the back seat and getting into the driver's seat because you're waiting for someone else to take care of that is very detrimental to living a life authentically.
Yes. And sometimes we live a life where we are quietly shouting, I'm a victim. Yes. Help. I'm a victim. Help. And we don't even realize it. I had a really interesting aha moment years ago. I have one sister who lives in town here with me, another one lives farther away. And whenever she would come to town to visit, after the kids had gone to bed, we would stay up late and we would talk about our childhood. And it was kind of this weird dysfunctional competition of who had it worse. Just, not a good thing. But it was very cathartic and healing to talk about all of those stories. And one night, my older sister said to me something I had been waiting to hear for a long, long time. She said, Samantha, I think you had it the worst because we left home when you were 11. And so you were just stuck home alone with all that anger.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, yes, thank you. I did have it the worst. And then I sat back and I thought of someone putting this like Olympic gold medal around my neck. And I thought, wait a minute, this is nothing I want to win. This is a bad win. And I thought, holy cow, Samantha, you got to let this shit go. And I think that's important too. And I wonder how many of us are sending out that message. Do you ever call up a friend to complain and the friend says, well, you think that's bad. And then they try to one-up you with their bad stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I always say to my friends, like, yeah, that's not a game I want to win. You had a bad day. I don't like that one-upmanship because, again, the universe will say, challenge accepted. You think you have it the worst? We will accommodate you.
When you just said that, what really another piece to this is accepting how strong you are. I think a lot of this fear-based stuff we put out there is, and I love that challenge accepted, by the way. I'm going to use that. And I can have a lot of fun with that. But I think that we may have been so depleted or worn down and I'm going to jump the fence over to the narcissist, that if you've been with someone who has worn down your sense of self, and you're trying to pick yourself back up and say, I need to manifest this job so I can be free, or I need to manifest a new living situation so I can get on with my life, or I need to, whatever you're trying to manifest that's going to improve your quality of life. If you've been so depleted by someone else keeping you controlled, or and I know I say this all the time, and I truly believe it in my heart. No one can make you feel. We choose to feel a certain way or choose to react. But I think that's another piece to this, is finding that inner strength and realizing how strong you can really be. And when you look back over your shoulder and you say, oh my gosh, I can't believe that I actually did that, or it gives you such a boost and a sense of self-confidence to take that next challenge, to set that new goal, to manifest that the next level up. So we're always continuing to grow and evolve in a positive direction, rather than staying limited or walking around in a circle and ending up in the same place.
Yes, exactly. Which is why that should be the name of this show, really, is Be Stronger Than Your Fear. Right. You've gotta first be able to identify your fear. That's why I do think it's important to get to the heart of your negative manifesting. Like, for example, with my friend I mentioned at the beginning of the show, I don't think her fear is that her husband's business will fail. I think her fear is that there's an issue in her marriage. And that's why he did not communicate with her or share or respect her enough to get her partnership communication contribution to his huge life-changing decision to leave this great job and start a restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
So I think getting to the root of your fear, if you're worried about money, what's the root of that fear? Is it that you can't pay your bills? Is it that you're not successful? Is it that you think you're a failure? If you're not manifesting love, what's the root of that fear? That you're not worthy of love, that you're not lovable, that you're always going to be alone, that you don't trust people.
I want to jump back to the money piece just for a second. As you made that statement, I think an important part of that is when you're so buried in the hole, when you're feeling you're not generating enough, or life circumstances or choices have put you so far in the hole that it just feels like you're drowning. And how am I going to get out of this? Because you never seem to catch up. That's hard. That you have every ounce of my empathy and compassion on that, because that's a really scary place to be. It's also it goes from feeling afraid to, and that's a huge example of manifesting the negativity, because it's always like, okay, yes, I have enough to pay this bill, but I don't have enough for that one. Or this is coming up that's due. And truly getting down to bare bones and looking at your lifestyle, looking at your choices. And similar to what you said about your friend in New York, you may need to get a different job, or you may need to find a way to bring in some more income that might not be fun. It might not be your dream job, but it might actually help you move in a more positive direction. And I didn't mean that preachy at all. I meant it more as take the reins back and say, I can do this. I can, because when you do step away from those self-defeating thoughts of what's the point? I can never get out of this anyway. You just limit yourself so much. And I think that
I think some people go ahead.
Oh, no. I was just going to say that it encourages more worry. It encourages, more and more stress to come into your life. And then it's a runaway train.
Yes. And I think too, going back to your role from your family of origin can be really important. I was the baby of the family. And so for many years I was coddled and given a lot of superficial attention. And I was always called the baby. Was the baby coming? Until I was 10, I was the baby.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized in my life, I'm often looking to be rescued. I often have that baby mentality, of I can't handle this. I need help. I remember like the littlest things when I first became single, the littlest things gave me the greatest joy. Like my garbage disposal got stuck. And I went to Home Depot and I got the little tool to unstick it. You would have thought I won the lottery or figured out Einstein's theory of relativity. I was like, look at me. And I realized, I'm always looking for other people to rescue me, to help me, to fix this, to fix that. And so something I do whenever I like to do active meditations, either beading bracelets or drawing. And so a lot of times I'll draw affirmation cards for myself. And so I drew myself as a knight, and I wrote, I am rescuing myself.
Oh, I love that.
And I take that up on my bathroom mirror. And so I think to look back at your childhood roots and think about what were the messages you were given, consciously or subconsciously, and how were you labeled in your family? We were all labeled in our family, whether it was ever spoken or not. Every single one of us came out of our family with some unspoken label.
Mm-hmm.
And look at how that label is impacting you today. Like my sister, the middle one, she's the funny one. And to this day, if anything gets stressful or tense, she'll crack a joke. Mm-hmm. It's what she does. She likes to keep things light and fluffy and fun, and she doesn't want to dive deep. And that's the way she handles things. It's very helpful in many situations. For me, I labeled myself the almost girl because I was always in school. I was slightly above average. I missed the gifted program by 1 point until my mom marched into school and gave them a taste of her Carol anger, and they put me in the gifted program. If you look at my high school yearbook, I was runner-up for many of the best of accolades. Mm-hmm. I would like almost get that brass ring. I remember one of my first interviews out of college. The woman called me and said, well, it was between you and one other. We really liked you, but the other person had more experience. We'll keep your resume on file. I was always getting that message of, you almost made it. Mm-hmm. And I was talking to my good friend years ago, who was also my department chair, and I was telling her some of those stories, and she said, Samantha, you got to kill the almost girl. You just got to get her. And you got to come up with a new name for yourself. And I thought, okay, she's right. So I did a lot of work on that. And then I wrote a manuscript, sent it out to a bunch of agents. One agent took it and signed me on. She was with a very big agency. And I thought, this is it. You know, I did it. I've manifested my lifelong dream. I'm going to be a legit writer. And she sent it out to 12 or 13 publishers who all rejected it within 6 months. And she said, okay, thanks. I'm going to break our contract. And the first thing I thought to myself was, the almost girl lives.
Oh.
And that was like years after I had thought I killed her. So I think those messages that we either tell ourselves as kids or our parents or teachers tell us, I think they take root. They're like little weeds. You pull them up and you think you got them, but they come right back up. Mm-hmm. So it's a constant cleaning process that we have to do. We have to really work consistently on cleaning out those weeds in our subconscious.
And that's a really good point as far as that regular energy clearing yourself up. And are you coming from a place of truth and authenticity to really want to manifest this? Why do you want it? You have to get dead ass clear with yourself. Yeah. Why do I want this? And if it's ego-based, it's ego-based. If it's humble, it's humble. If it's to be of service. But I think that's a huge piece of this is get clear on why you want it. And that's going to open up some big doors for you as well. But yes, those labels, another piece I want to add to that it's interesting you brought up, the labels or the way we view ourselves, how that changes throughout life. That, you hit certain decades in your life or you hit certain life change spots and all of a sudden you switch that and you say, wow, I haven't thought about myself in that way in a long time. So as you do the work and become more comfortable with who you are, it kind of negates some of that stuff or eases it a bit. It'll still rear its ugly head. I agree with you 100% on that. But it doesn't have to define who you are now in this moment and where you want to go with that.
Yes, exactly. Everything is a work in progress. And every time I think I have mastered a life lesson, again, I feel like the universe goes, challenge accepted. We'll show you, you little bee. You haven't done half the work you set out to do in this lifetime. And I'll be confronted with that lesson all over again. But the next time I'm confronted with it, I do a better job. And it's taken me a long, long, long time to be able to pat myself on the back with that. But I think it's really important, that gratitude piece. We have to be grateful for what we have. We have to be grateful for the shit we have in our lives too, because it's there for a reason. And just like manure makes some of the best flowers, sometimes the manure in your life is making you blossom in ways you can't even see just yet. So we have to be grateful for all of it. But most importantly, we have to be grateful for ourselves. Mm-hmm. Because we are alive and breathing and walking on this earth for a reason. And we are doing the best we can.
Right.
We really, all of us are. I had to run into Walmart at like 10 o'clock on a Friday night. Isn't that fun?
Well, you're a brave woman.
Well, I was with my kids. I had one of those days where I left the house at 6:30 a.m. and came home twice for 5 minutes to let the dogs out. And it was just this long, tired, exhausting day. And I had to run into Walmart because my daughters needed poster board for some art project the next day. So, because it was a Friday night. I know we needed poster board. Anyway, we had to go to Walmart at like 10 o'clock at night. And so we go in there, and there was someone in their pajamas. Mm-hmm. Like full-on pajamas, like flannel, slippers, the whole 9 yards. Now, inside my head, I was judging her. I was like, good Lord, what does it take to have so little energy? You can't even pull on a pair of pants. But then my oldest daughter voiced my inner judgment, and she was like, Mom, like, come on, how do you not even have the capability to pull on jeans? Mm-hmm. And I went right into mom mode, and I was like, honey, she is doing the best she can. And I thought, it's probably true. Like, maybe the best she could do was just to get in her car and drive to Walmart to get, cold medicine because she wasn't feeling good. And so I kind of just chided myself, as I chided my daughter, on not being so judgy, because we are all doing the best we can. Mm-hmm. Now, in that moment, like, I was having a really, really yucky day inside. I wasn't showing it to the kids, but inside I was just so stressed and overwhelmed, and just a lot on my mind and a lot on my plate. And I was having one of those pity me days, where it's like, I do all this work and I don't know what it's for. And so trying not to judge the lady in pajamas, trying to find the right kind of poster board they needed, which was like a black trifold, which is actually hard to find. Get all that, get in line. And I'm behind this woman, and she keeps staring at me. And I'm like, why is she staring at me? I don't want to make conversation. I am tired and cranky, and I just want to go home. And she won't stop staring at me. And so I just looked at her and smiled. And she said, are you Samantha Faye? And I said, yeah, I am. And she said, oh my gosh, you did a reading for me years ago that changed my life.
Oh.
And my daughters just kind of blinked, because they could give a crap what I do for a living, mm-hmm. They're like, whatever, Mom. And she started to get teary, and she said, can I hug you? And I said, of course. And as I hugged her, I said to her, and I'm sure she thought I was such a selfish bee for saying this, but I said, you have no idea how much I needed to hear that today.
Well, see, I don't see that as selfish at all. I see that as genuine.
Well, I just feel like she was trying to say, like, oh, the reading I gave really validated that her loved ones were okay on the other side. And I'm taking it going, yes, I really needed to hear that. I don't know. It was just kind of an awkward exchange. But I walked out of there, and I said to my girls, that's how our spirit guides work.
Yes.
I said, I've had a really crazy, ridiculous, stressful day. And all I wanted to do was get home and put on my PJs, not go to Walmart in my PJs. I'm kidding. But anyway, and get into bed and put this day away. And my guides they just knew I needed that little pick-me-up. It was just a really special moment. Anyway.
And I agree with you. I think that that's so important. I want to add in one quick thing before we finish up, is that if things are going well, if you've gotten on the other side of it, if you know you're manifesting what you want to bring into your life and it's positive and it's uplifting, keep very consciously working on that so that you don't fall back into those old patterns and either sabotage what you've worked so hard to do or limit yourself from going forward even more. And I think that's huge, is that we sometimes
Yeah.
we hit that plateau and say, okay, well, now it's really good. What's going to happen? Instead of, wow, it's really good. Look what I did. Now I can, this is my next goal, or this is my next thing I need to bring in. Does that make sense?
I think that makes perfect sense, and I think it's wonderful advice. And I think it reminds me of something else I wanted to mention before we close out, which is whenever you're feeling down or stuck or up and positive and like, wow, look at what I manifested, wherever you are in the cycle of life, I think it is so important to give back in a way that is meaningful to you, because that keeps that energy positive.
Yes.
And moving and flowing. And it reminds you subconsciously, when you can give back in any way, whether it's volunteering at your kid's school or your local library or the food shelter, or if it's just you're pushing your cart through the grocery store and you see peanut butters, buy one, get one free, and so you drop off an extra thing of peanut butter to the food pantry. Whatever it is, whatever you can give in any way, it's a reminder of, even when I'm at my worst, and especially when I'm at my best, I always have something positive to give.
Mm-hmm. And you said it earlier, the gratitude piece. And sometimes you have to really stretch for that gratitude. But I mean, for me, it's everything. It's truly, that's been such a turning point in my life, is when you switch it to being grateful for the most simplistic things in your life, it allows spirit to step in and bring more. It truly, truly does. So.
Exactly. Gratitude attracts more things to be grateful for. And It's the reverse, too, which is what we're talking about. Negativity attracts more things to be negative about. And none of this is designed, none of this that we talked about in this hour is designed to make you fearful of your fearful thoughts. I don't want anyone listening to this going, oh, crap, I don't even know what to think now. If I worry, I'm going to miss that. I think it's really important to just remember balance. If you have a worry and it's a legitimate worry, talk about it, write about it, give voice to that worry. Stephen King has this great essay you can find on the internet called Why We Crave Horror Movies. And his point is that all of us humans have wonderful positive emotions, but we also have negative, creepy, weird emotions. And nowhere in society are our negative emotions validated. And so that shadow side in us gets stronger and stronger and stronger. It needs outlets. And sometimes it seeks those outlets in unhealthy ways. So we're not saying suppress or repress your worries or fears. I think what we're trying to say is validate your worry and your fear, cuddle them, hold them, say, yes, I know this happened to you and it's awful, or yes, I know this could happen and it would be terrifying, but you know what? We are strong, we are confident, we are capable beings of light, and we can meet any fear or negative thing that comes our way because we are stronger than it. Once we connect with the light within us and the light being given to us from the universe, we are stronger than all of that. And so once you validate your fears and your worries, then you can let them go. And then you can focus on manifesting only the positive and highest for you and your purpose here on earth.
Very well put. Thank you.
Do you want to tell people about our exciting episode next week?
Oh, yes. Next week is our entrepreneurial empath show, and we did a wonderful interview with a young man who is a musician. He's in New York City, Patrick McManus. We talked a lot about, he's very much an empath, very much a creative, and I think you're going to have a lot of fun listening to him because his story and his outlook is absolutely inspirational. It's fabulous.
And I'm so excited to have a man on the show who is confident and talented enough in his own right to say, yeah, I'm a man and I'm an empath and I'm creative and I'm connected to all of it and it's okay.
And he's also, a beautiful, beautiful example of this generation that is, I've said it over and over, this group of people that are coming in, they're here for the change. They're here to lighten up the vibration. And he's a very, very good example of that. So.
I agree. So we hope you tune in and listen to that. Our April Q&A show is coming up. So if you have a story to share, if you've had a validation from anything connected to your intuition or your empathy, if you have a question that you would like us to discuss on the show, you can email that to us at enlightenedempaths@gmail.com, or you can message us on our Facebook page, Enlightened Empaths. Denise has been posting most of our shows to our YouTube channel on it's under Enlightened Empaths. So if you're at work and you want to surreptitiously listen to us, you can do so at your computer if you just go to YouTube. If you like our show, please tell a friend and consider leaving us a review on iTunes. It helps more people to find us. And we just really appreciate you all listening and building this community with us. It's a joy for Denise and I to do this together and to connect with you all. Also, in a couple of weeks, not next week, but in a couple of weeks, Denise and I are getting together and we are finalizing our plans for some webinars coming up. We're trying to do a webinar, we're thinking around July for a several-week webinar on opening up to mediumship. So we have got a lot of exciting stuff coming up for you. In the meantime, we hope you have a wonderful week. Don't forget to show up, do great work, and share your light.
Bye-bye.